steadfast commitment to Central PA.
Our organization is built on values like honesty, integrity, and trust. Our prices are low.
Something for me on your phone?
Our buying experience is...
I know the stats. I'm trying to bring up Westinghouse. I don't really know anything.
Blue green.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the pregame show for the second day of the state championship games here at Cumberland Valley. We've got some burners today. We've got a rematch to start off with. We have Southern Columbia facing off against Westinghouse. It's a rematch of last year, and it went right down to the fourth quarter, and Southern Columbia pulled away. The second game today, we have Peters Township and Imhotep Charter. But right now, I want to tell you our game coverage is sponsored by Sports Paradise. Sports Paradise provides uniforms for everyone. Any team you have, they provide great gear. It's also brought to you by Turf Tank. If you have grass fields, you need to get a Turf Tank. It'll save you hundreds and hundreds of hours, and it'll do a perfect job. It's also brought to you by...
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
SaferSports.com, SaferSports.com, providing helmet covers that keep our young athletes safe. And it's also brought to you by CoachCom, providing great communications on the field. Right now I'm going to take it down to the field with Alex.
Mr. and Mrs. Iyer and Mrs. Lynch, assistants. Mr. Joe Lynch, the band truck driver. Mr. Brian Leslie, trumpet instructor. And Mr. Joey Dudek, percussion instructor. We would like to give a huge shout out to our wonderful booster parents for doing all that they do for our program this season. The student officers this year include Senior President Sophia Boucher, Senior Vice President Ethan Rush, Junior Secretary Benjamin Barnes, Mr. Iyer, and Senior Librarian Patrick Lotus. This season's show brings the best in pop music to the field. This show includes the 2003 hit Crazy in Love by Beyonce and Jay-Z, I Got a Feeling by the Black Eyed Peas, Dark Horse by Katy Perry, and finally Uptown Funk by Mark Robson and Bruno Mars. Please feel free to stand up and dance with us as we take you through a super hits halftime performance. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the sights and sounds of the Tiger Marching Band. To our dedicated seniors, Patrick, Ethan, and Sophia, we thank you so much for your dedication to our Tiger Marching Band. We love you and we'll miss you and wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Fans, give it up for the Tiger Marching Band.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here they are live.
Hello, everyone. This is Mason Ettinger with PA Football News, here with Alex Fridrusevsky here at the Pennsylvania PAAA Class 2A state title game between the Southern Columbia Tigers and the Westinghouse Bulldogs. Southern looking for their 7th now straight state title, a record 14th, and they have a rematch against a familiar foe.
Yeah, over 20 state appearances for Coach Roth. It's one of those things that Southern doesn't rebuild, Mason. They just reload. Every year they expect to be playing in this game. For years it was down the road at Hershey Park Stadium. Now it's here at Cumberland Valley, and the script is always the same for them. They're going to come at you, they're going to hit you in the mouth, and they're going to try to get on long drives and wear you down over the course of the game.
The Garcia factory has produced another one. Garrett Garcia is leading the Tigers. 28 rushing touchdowns this year, a part of a two-headed backfield with Loud and Murphy. How do the Westinghouse Bulldogs stop him today?
They have to be strong on the defensive front. They've got a lot of returnees on the line. They're going to have to be strong. They're going to have to be smart. Got to be disciplined. Can't overshoot there coming off the ends. Got to make sure they control the line of scrimmage. And then the linebackers are going to have to step up in the secondary there.
Last year, this game was close. It was 7-6 at halftime, a one-point game into the fourth quarter. Southern kind of pulled away, and Westinghouse let it slip. How do they not allow that to happen and get a win this today?
Westinghouse was very much into the game deep into the fourth quarter. I think for them, it's going to be maintaining composure. I think last year we saw the team get a little rattled as the kind of intensity ratcheted up. It was one of those things that outside of the Still Valley game, they really really didn't have to face that type of pressure the entire season, even in the City League final. With Allard, I say they didn't really have to go through that. And when they got into a tight spot, things just went a little haywire for them. Keyshawn Morcillo overthrew a couple of the receivers. Some foolish penalties set them back. I think for this year, they're a little more in tune with that. They had a good showing against Farrell a couple of weeks ago. 24 points in the fourth quarter to come back and win that game. I think that's what set the stage for them to be ready here today. Khalil Green, quarterback, he learned last year behind Morcillo. Got to watch what happened in the state championship game. I watched over the last 5 years living in Pittsburgh, Westinghouse, and he's been there the whole time he's been in high school, and he's ready to lead this team, and he's done so this year. For them, offensively, take advantage of the weapons. Tamir O'Neal, they're going to have the best player on the field in Kashawn Robinson. Utilize him.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Khalil Green. He's got a tough task against the Southern Columbia defense. Every year, Jim Roth's focus is peak at the right time, run the ball and play defense. This might be the best defense he's seen all year. How does he attack it?
Dual threat. He's a kid who you can roll out because he's got some speed. You can roll him out and let him throw. He can tuck and run. And again, with all of these weapons on the outside, they're going to have to take advantage of that and try to get somebody into a foot race with them. And if Kashawn can get a step, then, you can be off to the races.
Southern Columbia brings in a two-headed backfield, Garcia and Murphy. How much of an advantage is that even if Garcia's not getting going, you can still go to Murphy and vice versa? I
think any coach is happy when you have two players that are at that level where you can interchange them at the running back position. We saw a lot of that last night with Aliquippa where, Tyke got his yards. Well over 200 yards for Taquai Hayes, who's going to Penn State. But they had other guys who they were able to get touches, and we're talking 8-9 yards a clip. Southern Columbia is in a similar situation, maybe a little bit different talent level, but if you have 2 or 3 college guys that you could throw in there, it gives you an advantage. And it's just like I think for them at the running game, what Westinghouse has at the receiver positions, where there's 4 or 5 guys they can target, they have 2 guys that they can share the load with in the backfield.
I think we saw it yesterday at the 1 o'clock game on Thursday when Steelton High Spear was able to beat Fort Cherry 42-8. Fort Cherry was really a one-trick pony. They had Matt Sig, who was an amazing player, but when he didn't get going, they really didn't have anybody to rely back on. These 2 teams here, Garcia and Murphy, and then the playmakers for Westinghouse, they both have guys to rely on in this game.
Yeah, really, I think we're going to see a different feel to this game than we did to the 2 yesterday. I think that, I don't want to say they were foregone conclusions when we stepped on the field, but you knew that Steel High and Aliquippa were going to be heavy favorites with their advantage at the skill positions. I think today it's a little more even up. Both teams have very strong offensive and defensive lines. They're good at the linebacker positions. They have athletes out wide. And I think, again, it just makes for a good, even matchup. We knew Fort Cherry was going to be heavily reliant on Matt Sieg. Don't count them out. I think we're going to see them back here. It's a pretty young team. And if they can develop 1 or 2 receivers and, that line continues to develop for them, Sieg can carry them back here again next year. Certainly not out of the question. They'll have to tangle with Canavan again. But, you want to make an early projection, I'd say they have more than a puncher's chance to have another strong season. But focusing on this game, both teams have the ability to hit you over the top. Both teams can really wind out a drive if they have to. I think Westinghouse a little more big play, explosive offense compared to Southern Columbia. A little different for them with Al Veselowski this year, who was able to shoulder the load in the backfield. But again, when you have 2 more guys who come back who maybe aren't at his level but are still going to be college football players, it's like for like.
Yesterday, we saw 2 games really get over before they started. I'll start with Westinghouse. How do they keep this close and then be able to pounce in the end?
I think for both of these teams, it's much like I said with Dallas yesterday. Survive the first drive, survive the first quarter. If you're within a score, you're there. And again, with Westinghouse's offense, you can be down by 3 scores. They Farrell and you're still in the game. But I think, it's just control the clock for both teams. You want to try to keep the opposing offense off the field. You want to keep the ball away from the running backs from Southern Columbia. You don't want to get Khalil rolling out, throwing passes towards the sideline, down the field towards Keyshawn Robinson, Tamir O'Neal. You want to try to contain them. And if you have the ball, it's not necessarily as much in the first half where you can hit big plays. If it's there and you take it and you get it, great. But it's about sustained drives, and I think that's what's going to determine this game. The team that can sustain the drives better will be the one that wins this ball game tonight.
You know, I don't want to discredit Southern Columbia. Of course, they've won 6 straight state titles, but they've kind of had an easier road to the playoffs. How do you think the defense and the whole team really is going to match up to probably the best team they've seen all year?
You know, I think that this is the best team that both of them will see all year. So I think we can take a lot of those scores that we've seen and throw them out the window. 5 years covering the Pittsburgh City League. It took a dip this year. So the competition level that Westinghouse was a little more accustomed to, even within the city, Alderdice had let's call it a poor year. This is going to be the best team that both of them play. I think Farrell was a good test for them. But again, Mount Carmel, Southern Columbia always seems to have trouble with them in the regular season and then hands it to them in the playoffs. But, we got to wrap it up. We're getting close to game time. Give you the final word.
Thank you. This is Mason Ettinger with Alex Fidrzeszewski. We'll send it back up to Billy Splain for the last words.
All right, thanks, guys. Hey, appreciate it. And again, our pregame show is brought to you by SaferSports.com, building great helmet covers to keep our kids safe. NFHS approved. They can be worn in a game. CoachCom, creating great communications for the coaches on the sideline. It's also brought to you by, and we want to mention this, we don't have it on our screen right now, but the Funding Zone. The Funding Zone is an awesome sponsor of ours. If you need to raise money for any program, whether it be hockey, lacrosse, soccer, basketball, football, or even if you have a church organization, get a hold of the Funding Zone, and they'll help you raise money at a record pace. We'd also like to thank Sports Paradise for providing some gear for us. And if you need a uniform for your team, you got to get a hold of Kevin at Sports Paradise. And finally, I want to thank Turf Tank for being a sponsor. If you've got grass fields, you need a Turf Tank. They'll save you hundreds of hours. We'll be back at halftime with a report on the first half of this game between the Southern Columbia Tigers and the Westinghouse Bulldogs.
It is halftime at the PIAA 2A Championship. Mason Edinger here with Alex Fidrzeszewski. 14-14, we've had a good football game so far. Your thoughts on this first half?
I think this is, as expected, two evenly matched teams, and I think we thought, early on, could Southern Columbia keep it between the tackles? They didn't have to keep it between the tackles. First play of the game, they go off tackle, 95 yards for a score to take an early lead, jump on Westinghouse, get a second one, but Westinghouse, credit to them, they've been able to get the passing game going, and they have scraped and clawed their way back into this one, and they've been able to do, kind of as we talked about in the pregame, can they control the defensive line? And they've been able to do that, a little bit better, did very well with that in the second quarter, benefited from some mental mistakes from Southern Columbia too. We're tied going into the locker room.
The first 3 minutes, Southern took a 14-0 lead. Westinghouse has been able to battle back. What does that say about this team that they've been able to come back from that deficit?
A year older, a year smarter, a year more mature. When they came here last year, I think there was a little bit of shell shock. I know this isn't Hershey Park saying, but it's the state championship environment. The TV cameras are here. All the radio stations are here. The media's lined all around the field. And I think the guys that were freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, they saw last year what happened. They saw how they kind of, want to say self-imploded. Westinghouse did in the last quarter. They struggled mightily. And I think a year older, a year smarter, they have been able to harness this environment this year. And I think another year under Dante Green, if you've read any of the articles about what Westinghouse football now stands for, it's a year stronger and a year smarter.
I got to give credit. Westinghouse has been the better team so far. Southern had that one play early in this game and then the pick six. Besides from that, they have not been able to do much. What have you liked from that Westinghouse defense?
It's the ability of their front four to own the line of scrimmage. I think in the secondary, we knew Westinghouse was going to have an advantage. Again, with the best player on the field, it's Kyshawn Robinson. Major D1 offers as a sophomore playing in the defensive backfield. They're going to have an edge there. The question, and it remains into the second half of a tie football game, is it going to be the offensive line of Southern Columbia or the defensive line of Westinghouse that will determine what Southern Columbia can do with the ball? On the flip side, it's going to be Westinghouse's passing attack. Until Southern Columbia shows that they can stop it, if I'm Dante Green, when I have an opportunity, I'm throwing 2 out of 3 downs.
Garrett Garcia, Mike linebacker for Southern Columbia, 13 tackles in the first half already. Do you change your game plan at all in the locker room when he's been all over the field? Do you try to get away from him, or is everything the same?
I would continue to play my game if I'm Westinghouse. I think if I'm Dante Green, I like what I have seen of my wide receivers thus far and their ability, one, to make big plays, because Tamir O'Neal, number 7, has come up with some very big catches here in the first half. The one coming down where they scored, he went full extension on to bring it in at the end of the second quarter. I'm also, if I'm Dante, I'm happy to see the separation that they can get from the D-backs of Southern Columbia, whether it's a go route or it's something little, 5 and in. Now they've kind of shown, hey, Southern Columbia is struggling to keep them in front of them, and after the catch, they're struggling to keep up with them. So if I'm Westinghouse, throw, run. If you have to run, there's your third down, short gain. But if I'm Dante, I just keep doing what I'm doing. And for Southern Columbia, you try to get a pitch outside again.
Unfortunately, this kind of feels like deja vu for the Westinghouse fans and players. This was kind of the game. I know less scoring last year in the first half, but it was close the whole way through. How does Westinghouse stay in it if it becomes a fourth quarter ball game?
Mental mistakes that were made last year, they have to have learned from them. And knowing Dante Green, that is something they have been preaching for 364 days, because that's what it's been since last year's game with Southern Columbia. Just from seeing the way this team acts, the way they hold themselves on the field, off the field, from what I've heard, less penalties this year than there were last year. They've cleaned that part of the game up. And I think looking at the way Khalil has played at quarterback for them, Khalil Green, he's locked in. Keyshawn was a little rocky last year. Khalil Green's locked in.
Halftime from Southern Columbia and Westinghouse and the Bulldogs. We'll send it up to Billy Splain. We'll be back post-game with our post-game analysis. This is PA Football News on YouTube.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks, Mason and Alex on the field there. And again, we want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank SaferSports.com, creating helmet covers to keep our kids safe on the field. They are NFHS approved and can be worn during the game. We want to thank CoachCom, creating better communication for coaches all over the country in the NFL, the NA, and any other sport you can find. CoachCom, you'll see them on the sidelines. I want to thank Turf Tank. If you have grass fields, you need Turf Tank. Get a Turf Tank now and save yourself 100 hours or maybe 200 or maybe 1,000 hours. And Kevin James with Sports Paradise, they make great uniforms for any program. If you have a lacrosse team, a basketball team, a soccer team, or anything, you need a uniform, you get a hold of Kevin James. You can find all of these sponsors on our website. Get a hold of them, contact them. Thank you for being a sponsor. We'll be back with a post-game wrap-up of this exciting contest.
I covered them for 5 years. You don't have to be a neutral to know what they did this weekend.
That was a late flag on the 4th and 18.
Bullshit.
Celebration lasts throughout the years. So bring your good times. We gon' celebrate your party with you. Come on down. We gon' celebrate your Let's celebrate.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Man, what a game we had, ladies and gentlemen. Southern Columbia gets the win 20-21. They score with just seconds left in the game as they're getting handed the title trophy on the field. We'd like to thank our sponsors, SaferSports.com. Safer Sports. They build incredible helmet covers for our players to keep them safe on the field. We want to thank Turf Tank. If you have grass fields, you need a turf tank. Save hundreds of hours putting lines on that field. We want to thank Coach Com. Coach Com is creating better communications every single day for coaches on the field. And we want to thank Kevin James and Sports Paradise for being a sponsor of our live halftime, postgame, and pregame reports. Right now, as we wait, we're going to take it live down to the guys on the field. Get ready to take it away. Alex and Mason, take it away.
Mason and Alex down here on the sideline. We just saw a classic of a football game that sure had a controversial ending. Heartbreak for Westinghouse, joy for Southern Columbia. Your thoughts on that game?
Take a deep breath, everybody. This is the game we've been waiting for all weekend, and I think thus far it's the one that we hoped would live up to the billing. It exceeded everything that we have possibly hoped for. We had great line play, big plays on both sides of the ball. There was controversy out there, some flags that everybody's going to go home and question on either side. We had it all. This game was one of the great PIAA state championship games. It's among the top 2 or 3 that I have ever covered in my 20 years of doing this. This is up there with Liberty Bethel Park. It's up there with Central Catholic and Bishop McDevitt way back as well. And, you know, I think we could put Westinghouse, Southern Columbia on that list today, man.
Let's set the scene. It came down to the fourth quarter. They were all the way on that side. They had to go 99 yards, Southern Columbia, down 6. They worked it to around midfield area. It was a 4th and 8. They got the first down, and then a penalty, a holding on Southern Columbia, made it 4th and 18. Then a fumble on the other side. Westinghouse celebrated. They thought they had won. A late flag came in, holding on Westinghouse, put it back to a 4th and 8. Southern took advantage, marched down, scored, took a 21-20 lead after the Isaac Carter extra point, and they were able to hold on the last 40 seconds. Your thoughts on that last sequence?
Again, it had everything you could ask for and more, and it, you know, something that everybody will go home and talk about. This is one of those games that 20 years from now people are going to be talking about as one of the instant classics in state championship play. Southern Columbia started uncorking passes in the fourth quarter on that last drive. They proved that they could throw the ball, and, you know, listen, they did a great job. Kudos to them. Another state title for Southern Columbia, and for Westinghouse, even more to build on and come back and give it their best shot again next year. And I think they got nothing to be ashamed of. They played an excellent football game, and credit again to both teams. We're all going to go home very happy after this. We're all going to go get some dinner, come back, do it again later. But man, Peters Township and Imhotep have a lot to live up to right now.
Oh, yes, they do. So I know the penalties will put a hinder on this thing, but Southern Columbia really did not have any type of offense the entire football game. So the ability to go 99 yards down the field is really impressive. What'd you see from that Southern drive?
Winners win.
Winners win.
Winners win. Championship teams know how to put together championship drives. Flags, whatever people argue about on both sides, they were justified, they weren't. Championship teams know how to win, and Jim Roth has put together a team that knows how to win. The kids that are seniors, they have been here 4 times. They know what to do in a last-minute situation. And for Westinghouse, round 2, they've been here. They could very well be back here next year. We could be talking 364 days, like they said in the pregame when they were coming out onto the field. We waited 364 days. Well, 364 days from now, they could be here again, and so could Southern Columbia.
I know this game just ended, but the thought of Westinghouse coming back and potentially playing Southern again with the added fuel.
Oh, round 3.
Oh,
let's do it
again.
You know what? I'm even going to go further. Billy can take it when we go up there, but let's open the season with them somewhere. Southern Columbia, Westinghouse. Hey. Billy, make it happen. Where are we going to play the preseason showcase? We got to do it. Week 0, Southern Columbia, Westinghouse. But this has been great. Unbelievable game. Credit to both teams. This has been the game of the weekend so far. The next three, again, they have a lot to live up to. And my closing thought, congratulations, Southern Columbia. They know how to win.
They are inevitable. 7 straight, 14 now, extending their lead on the PIAA. That's going to do it from this game. Mason Alex down on the sideline. Peters Township and Imhotep coming up next. This is PA Football News on YouTube.